Hello YouTube! So you've signed up and got yourself a team in Hattrick. Welcome! Now it's time to take your first steps as a manager, and here's how to go about it. The first thing you should do, and I know this is kind of boring advice, you should read the manual. Alright, so I know there's a lot to digest here. Instead of saying you should read everything from A to Z, I would tell you to read it all in chunks, of course. The most important thing to read about, Chapter 6, Training, and Chapter 11 about Staff. This is what you start with. And as soon as you've read those two, you start out on your manager license, and I'm fairly sure you can click this icon and you can get started. But don't spend any of the money that you earn from doing license tasks. Number 2, understanding the pace of Hattrick. So Hattrick is a long-term game, and initially you'll feel that there's a lot of things to do in Hattrick, but once things calm down a little bit and you go from the initial startup to the week by week managing, you'll probably feel that it's a little slow, and that's natural. Hattrick was developed back in 1997 and everything was just slower back then, and the access to the internet was limited in ways, so you wouldn't do a lot in order to keep up with Hattrick. There's one place where you can gain an advantage by doing a lot if you know what you're doing, and that's in the transfer market. Most other places in Hattrick, it's about optimization for the next update or the next tick. You cannot do more than just applying the optimal settings and conditions for your team in order to grow. Hattrick is played in real time, and the season lasts 16 weeks. 14 of these being the league season, and then you have 2 weeks in between. Let's study the league pyramid and see how many people are actually competing for a place in the top flight. And this illustration only goes down to level 6, so in bigger countries it would be even more intense. Level 1 here is the top flight, and you'll have 8 teams there obviously, and then it will expand by 4 on each level, so there will be 4 level 2 divisions, 16 level 3 divisions, 64 level 4 divisions, and 256 level 5, 1024 level 6 divisions, and each of these divisions hold 8 teams. So naturally, there's a long way to the top. It fits pretty okay with Hattrick being a long-term game. It also means that it's impossible to stay on top if you are challenged by younger and upcoming teams coming from the lower divisions. It's important to understand success in Hattrick will take time, and it will take patience. Number 3, you should definitely be making a training plan. When you're newly started, you have an excellent tool called the training planner as a part of a promotion as supporter. I'll show you how this works. Right, and you should probably choose one of the youngest players in the squad. This illustration, I'll just use Ricky. He's my youngest player, and I'll show you what happens. Let's just set the training settings to something that would be obtainable by a completely new team. Trainer skill level 6, that's the passable trainer you start with. For illustration purposes, let's just leave it at level 8 assistant trainer levels. Right, let's imagine that we would train Kick for 8 weeks. It's half a season in Winger. We select the full training here, and we update the results, and it shows that he would gain 2 levels in Winger. Would go from passable to excellent if we trained him this way for 8 weeks. And let's just imagine that we swapped another period of training. Let's say a full season, and we swapped to playmaking. This isn't necessarily what anyone would do with the training. We'll just leave these as it is. We'll see that he would gain 4 levels of playmaking. This is just to show you the speed of training, and it takes a while to develop players in Hattrick. Most important thing is to have a complete training plan as a new team. This is where you can compete with every team. I would recommend training something that doesn't require you to buy a lot of trainees, however. That way you can get to solid trainer skill and level 10 assistant trainer levels faster. You would always leave stamina on 10% and training intensity 100%. Study this training page thoroughly before you decide which training plan to go for. Let me just show you this winger example here. A right winger and a left winger, they receive 100% training, and the back slots, right and left, receive 50%. Let me just show you the defender, because that's different. All players in the defensive backline will receive training in this example. meaning you can train 10 players, 5 in a league game and 5 in a cup or a friendly game. That means you can train 4 wingers for 100% and 4 backs for 50%. Number 4, you should be starting an academy. Training senior players is fundamental to your long-term success in Hattrick, but training youth players is where you can actually strike gold and find big money. And this is because if you control that academy yourself, you can consistently pull the talented players when they're as close to 17 years and 0 days as possible. And with Hattrick players, it's just worth so much more being very close to the age of 17 compared to 17 years and 30 days. Being able to pull them exactly on their birthday just means a lot. And the academy is where, if you're really lucky, could potentially earn a lot of money. Look in the description for a link to a video explaining how you can get an easy start with the youth team if it feels a little daunting. Number 5, the stadium. You should be planning an expansion of your stadium sooner than you actually think. Old advice was always to stay away from stadium expansions a good while after you started. You will actually be losing money from not having enough seats rather quick. Initial cost to construction of the stadium is lowered from what it used to be, so look into this pretty soon after starting. Nowadays, the initial cost is only 10,000 euros, or in this case 100,000 kroner. Make sure you search on how to allocate the different seats correctly. I will link to my preferred tool in the description. Finally, a few quick tips. On the forum Global English, you'll find the unwritten manual. The manual of Hattrick is quite vague and isn't all clear about some of the concepts, but the unwritten manual was once created by a user called Sorbas, and he started, along with a lot of people in the community, to gather information about what's actually going on in Hattrick, meaning how does things actually work, and there you can get a lot of extra information. So if you are keen on learning everything there is to know about Hattrick, this is a good place to start. And there's a lot of posts, and it's maintained by the community. At the other end of the spectrum, and that's from the questions in English, there's the newbie questions, and I like to go here every now and then to see if there's anything that comes to mind, anything people are curious to know. Chances are it's useful information for you as well. And you can start to consolidate your own Hattrick knowledge if you know the answer to one of the newbie questions. Maybe you just learned something. And the final thing, and this depends on whether you like to learn on your own or you like to have someone to talk to and spar with, you should apply for a mentor, the same place where you completed your manager license in the beginning of the game. Other than that, there's nothing else to say than enjoy Hattrick life, and hopefully you like this video. Good luck in Hattrick.